Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the CNC with Dave show. This is our, I think, 5th episode, and I think we've got a really good show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Mach 3 settings and different things about Mach 3. And Juan Lopez over there is going to be talking us through some of this stuff. And before we get started, we'll go ahead with introductions. So we'll start on the other side. Since Juan's going to be the one doing the talking tonight, we'll start on the other end of the thing here. And Tommy, how about unmute yourself and tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, my name's Tommy Gonzalez. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, all under Tommy G Workshop. And you can check out my website, www.tommygworkshop.com.
All right, very good. Richard, you're up next. You want to unmute yourself and say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Richard McIntosh. I have a YouTube channel called Sawdust Maker. I also am on Instagram under the same Sawdust Maker. And I have a website at sawdustmaker.org.
Okay, thank you, Richard, for joining us tonight. Next, we have my buddy out there in Texas, Russ Meadows.
Hey everybody, Russ Meadows here. You can find me on Facebook under that name. You can also find me on my Facebook page, Rusty Nailz Woodshop.
All right, thanks for being on here tonight, Russ. Next, we have Melinda Davies.
Hello, I'm Melinda Davies. I'm on Facebook right now, but I'm trying to get a new channel started for my woodworking because I kind of like to keep that separate from family. So look for that coming hopefully in the next week.
Okay, good. Thanks for being on here again, Melinda.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark Lindsay, you're up.
Yes, hello. My name is Mark Lindsay, and you can find me in the YouTube comments. I have a channel with not a lot on it yet, but I'm getting ready to change that. And you can find me on Facebook, all under my name, Mark Lindsay.
Okay, very good. And next we have Juan Lopez there on the end. Go ahead, Juan. You're still muted there, Juan.
He's still studying.
Oh, is he still studying? Okay.
Or you can find me on YouTube.
Okay, go ahead and run through that again, Juan. I think we missed part of that.
Oh, my name's Juan. You can find me on YouTube, G-Code 1 Design, and also on Facebook and on Instagram. And well, I guess today we're talking about Mach 3. And really, let me see, where do we start? Mach 3 is control software, and that's what we get with Dave's machines, or that's what I've gotten mainly.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody understands, you know, any of the new folks out there watching that Mach 3 is control software, as you said, Juan, and it's not programming or design software. There's a difference. You know, I've had some people, when they talk about getting a machine from me or building one of my, you know, from my plans or something like that, they think that they get Mach 3 and they're good to go. And no, that's just how you control the machine. You need some kind of other software to program it and do your design work. So glad you brought that up, Juan.
Yeah, for designing, I mainly use a VCarve Pro. Like it's been said here too, they have there's that F-Engrave and other programs out there you can use, but Mach 3 is just strictly control, which is what basically controls your machine. There are other control softwares out there too. This one is basically my setup let me start there. My setup is the GarageWorks CNC and with the Xylotech kit. And the cool thing about Mach 3 is it could be set up to almost any motors or any type of control boxes or modules that may be provided. But for information on the settings, the particular settings, you'd have to get them from the provider or whoever provides those modules for you. And I'm sure also the type of screws or whatever type of drive you may be using for your machine will also apply to the settings within Mach 3. I can only answer and give information on the setup that I have. So
well, Juan, if you would here, how about you kind of go through with, when you got your GarageWorks CNC put together, what were like the, you installed your Mach 3, and what were the first settings and things, kind of go through the initial setup of Mach 3 for some, that'll help people that are, setting it up for the first time.
Sure. Mach 3, as soon as when you install it, it asks you whether you're going to be running a mill, router, or plasma, or whatnot, And of course, start with mill, which is what we're using, and from there you go into your configuration settings, and with Dave's particular machines, they're not all alike. There's a slave drive or motor that's important that you need to make sure you check off there. And let me see if I could.
Yeah, and I think the first thing it asks you is when you first open up Mach 3, I think for the very first time, it wants you to tell it whether you're using inches or metric. Yep. So you need to set that, and then you can change that later on if you change your mind. But it'll ask you that right off the bat.
Right. And also, given that with Mach 3, now Dave might give more information about this, but in my particular setup, I had to get an older computer that had the parallel port, which communicates with Mach 3. And I know you, Dave, bought different types of controls that are.
Yeah, I bought well, I have an old computer out in my shop that I used to run my old Sidewinder machine because it still runs off the parallel port. But for the GarageWorks CNC 4x4 that I have in my garage, I have people come by want to see a demo on it. So I wanted to be able to run it with my laptop, and it obviously doesn't have a parallel port. So at first I bought a Ethernet smooth stepper, and that worked fairly well. That's an option, and they also make that as a USB smooth stepper or an Ethernet smooth stepper. The Ethernet smooth stepper is a little bit more expensive. I think it was $180, and I believe the USB smooth stepper is about $150 or $160, something like that. But is that me that's cutting out bad?
Yeah, for me it is.
Okay.
You're back, though.
Can everybody else hear me okay? Okay, I see a few people shaking their head. Everybody's still muted, so I can't tell. Okay, I'll keep talking. If you can't hear me, just stop me and let me know. But anyway, so you have two choices there. If you don't have a parallel port, you can use an Ethernet smooth stepper or a USB smooth stepper. And then I more recently bought a UC 100 CNC motion controller that works off a USB port. And I found that to be much easier to set up. I went out there and, hear the downloaded the drivers and installed them, and within about 4 minutes or so, I was up running. So, and the thing works great. So, if you have a newer computer and don't have a parallel port, I would definitely recommend that UC100. And that, I bought that off of Amazon. I think it was about 115 bucks. So not only does it work great, it's cheaper than the smooth steppers too. So that, let's see, where were we, Juan?
I guess one of the things I want to touch off too is the steps, the micro steps. That seems to be well, I got a couple of questions on Facebook on how their machine wasn't syncing enough, or when they drew something, it came out a different size on their table or on the machine. Mach 3, there's a setting for your steps, and if you are using the Xylotech kit like I am, I guess there was a video that you had before that had 3,200 micro steps, and now it's 6,400, and
yeah, that was a great deal of confusion, because I did that video series, and the kit that I bought to build that machine was the 1/8 step, which is
right.
That's what's on my old Sidewinder. I mean, I've been buying them for years from Xylotech, and so I did the Mach 3 settings and had screenshots and everything, and I'm telling everybody, just put 3,200, and if you're using the 5-start lead screws, everything will work perfect. And then I got people, did the Mach 3 settings and had screen. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
No problem. So then later on, he started selling units that were 1/16 step, and it kind of threw everything off, because now people were calling and saying, well, I'm cutting this, and it's supposed to be 4 inches, and it's only 2 inches or whatever. And that's what it was. I didn't realize he was going to a 1/16 controller, but that changes the steps per unit. And just so people know, that's if you're looking in Mach 3 for that, that's in the motor tuning tab. When you go down, I think it's the second one down, and then ports and pins is the first one, and then you slide over to no, I take that back. Motor tuning's on down a little bit. Let me pull mine up here. I can see. Yeah, it's like the third one down on the config menu, where your motor tuning is, and that's also where you put, what you want your rapids to be and stuff like that. And you can put that too high. If you put it higher than what it will actually go, it'll drop it down and tell you, no, this is all you're gonna get.
Right.
So, but yeah, the 6,400 steps is what it should be. And there's a big formula. I was trying to write it down here. I don't know if anybody can make sense of it. I'll hold it up here if people can see it. I don't know if they can. But it's basically lead screws, which is revolutions. Revolutions over inch times 1 over the microstep times the step. I gotta keep looking at this. Over revolutions. And like right down here below that, I've wrote an example for what it is for a 1/16 step with the 5-start lead screws. Because you got, for a 5-start lead screw, you're going to have 2 revolutions to move an inch. So it's basically 2 times 16 times 200, and then that's 6,400. So, but another really easy way, if you're not good with math and don't understand that formula, another good way is just to take a ruler and maybe tape it down on your table and set it at a number, and then tell the machine to go 4 inches or whatever, and then look and see what it goes. And you can pretty much tell whether your steps per unit are off or not. And if you don't, like I said, if you don't know any other way to do it, you can dial it in doing it that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the screen share. I have the set on the setting. It's on the settings tab. the settings tab, there's a right above the reset button. There's a calibration, and that will get you actually. I mean, if you want to dial it in within, I had mine dialed in within 5/1000ths of an inch, and if you want to dial it in that much, it comes out to 6-7 place decimal steps.
And there, what you're doing, Juan, if I'm right on this, you correct me if I'm wrong, is you tell it to move a certain distance, and then you have a way of measuring it, like with a dial indicator or something.
Yep.
And if it doesn't move exactly what you told it to, you put what it did move in there, and it automatically calculates it out, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a pretty handy feature for people that really want to dial it in. I've actually never done that because mine runs close enough for the stuff I do, and I've never tried to really dial it in like that. But I knew you could do it. I've seen videos of people doing it.
Let me see.
Okay, and I guess one of the other things you have to set up pretty quick too is the pins, ports and pins.
Yes.
And usually you would get that. I know you get that from the Xylotex kit. Comes with a little piece of paper he throws in there, so he tells you what the X, the Y, and the Z is. And then Juan, you can tell them how you go about slaving the axis, because I know you've done that since you have a Garage Works there.
Sure. Is the screen share actually working on my side? Yeah. Just for visual, the axis calibration right above the Z axis there, and it asks you how far do you want an x-axis to move. For example, I put 2 inches. Of course, this is before. I don't have them in order, unfortunately. It tells you what axis you want to pick. And let me see here. And how far did your x-axis move? And that's what you were just saying. As soon as you hit OK, it gives you the exact number. I just repeated the same number, so it gave me the 6,400 steps per unit.
Mm-hmm.
You accept it, and it'll automatically put it in your settings for your motors.
Yeah.
Now, what were you saying before that?
I was, talking about ports and pins, because that's one of the first things you have to set up as well. Xylotex, I know, and I've done so many of them. I know that the X is 2 and 3, the Y is 4 and 5. And yeah, he's got it. Yeah, he's got it right there. So he kind of spells it out for you. And really, whether you're using a Xylotex kit or not, any of the kits should pretty much
yeah, they're all different.
Have some documentation so you know what port to set it on and what pin it's going to use.
Yeah, Xylotex provides you with it's got a pin step and a pin 3. I'm pretty sure DR stands for direction, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think 100%. It does.
And the good thing about Xylotex, it even comes with red is X, yellow is Y, and green is Z. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah,
that's of course, that's one reason why I've always recommended Xylotex, is because of the color coding. It really, it's definitely plug and play. I mean, you can't hardly get any easier than their kits, in my opinion. I can't speak for the other ones, but the color coding really helps you know which one to plug to which motor.
Oh, the slave axis.
You getting ready to show the slave axis one?
That is what the window will look like.
Okay, and just so people, I just want to make sure people understand.
On mine, it's set up for the Y.
Yeah, I want to make sure they know what we're talking about when we say slave. This is for machines that have 2 stepper motors, but they're working in sync to drive a single axis. So, Juan has the GarageWorks CNC, and it has 2 stepper motors that drive the y-axis, so they have to be synced. And right there, he was showing you how you select that box.
Now, in order to get to that, that will be on your config tab, or you config at the top of the page. Let me see.
Yeah, it's config, and then you come down. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th one down says slave axis.
Yep, there it is. So that's one thing that needs to be put in there if you're using the Sidewinder or the
and of course some
GarageWorks.
machines, there's some machines that are 3-axis machines, and they only have 3 stepper motors or servo motors or whatever they're using, because a lot of them have a single motor, in the middle to move the y-axis. So if that's the case, if you've got one like that, you don't really need to slave the axis. But it's only if you're using 2 different stepper motors to move one axis.
Now, as far as Mach 3 as a control software, it's capable of basically acting as a mill control. I've been able to set different G coordinates. I don't know if we want to get them in depth to that, but different G coordinates, height offsets for tools, and also I actually just learned to use the actual homing, the software, the soft home, as far as for it to alarm.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, because I know, I don't ship any kind of a machine with limit switches or anything like that. Anybody's, obviously welcome to put them on there if they want them. But with using the Mach 3 with those soft limits, you really don't need them.
Right.
At least in my opinion,
Yeah, I wasn't even using soft limits at all. But if you want me to walk through that, let me see if I could actually bring the camera and try to see how well this works.
While you're doing that, Juan, I'm gonna try to get YouTube on here. I don't have YouTube going, so
All right.
I'm gonna see if I can check out the chat just to see if there might be any questions over there.
All right. So right now everything's on 0, and let's see. Reference on my machine. I like setting up my stuff on the corner, right there. Now I have to do that every time I start the machine. I don't know if you can see, but I basically hit machine coordinates. The box needs to be highlighted where it says machine coordinates, and reference all home, and that will zero everything out. And from there, if you highlight your soft limits, of course your soft limits need to be set up from your config file. and homing limits, which would be the 6th one down, and it brings a box just like the other ones, and it'll ask you on the X, Y, Z what the soft max is and the soft minimum, and the dimension where it'll start slowing down before it comes to a stop and alarms.
Yeah, I guess that's basically what soft limits is you kind of tell it what size table you have or what, how far you want it to go, and it will, when it starts getting close to that, if you tell it to, slow down within an inch or so of it, it'll start slowing down so that if you do, crash it out, it's not going to hit hard.
Correct. Let me see if I can get my Z in here, and I'll show you. You can even hear the motor slow down. Make sure you have salt limits highlighted, by the way. Like there, I'm still holding the page up button, and it's not going up anymore. So there, it limited out. And it'll do that for every axis. Sorry?
What do you have that Z-axis set at in the soft limits? I mean, I've got mine, and I'm showing like 100 or something.
Yes, that's what it actually, all of them will be set at, but that's where you enter your own. That's the default. Let me see. Homing limits. For my Z, I got it set at 2 inches, 625 thousandths. Now, that's because my table is double stacked. So if you have a single stack table, it could change depending on how far your actual travel is. What I did is I touched off the table, and I zeroed it out on my VDO, on my actual where it shows you, your readings, and I brought it up to where I would like for it to limit out, and that's what I entered into the actual software.
Well, that helps. I appreciate.
Juan, if I can interrupt you just for a second, I see we've got a few questions over there in the chat. Jim Bashirs was asking if anybody is using a laptop to run theirs, and as I mentioned earlier, I use the laptop I'm on right now to run the demo machine I have out in my garage. Are you using a laptop with yours as well, Juan?
No, I have a desktop.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the desktop's not connected to the internet or anything like that. It's just no desktop.
Yeah. So is anybody else? What about you, Mark? You got an old beater desktop out there too, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have just an old Windows XP computer. It's not online. It's not plugged in. There's no wireless. It doesn't even have any antivirus software. It runs Mach 3, and that's all.
That's what makes it hard for me to share all the actual settings that I have. Is I don't have them. That computer's not running with the internet right now.
Yeah, I did a clean install of Windows XP. I eliminated everything else. It doesn't try to look for updates. There are no screensavers, no power savings. It comes on and it fires right up. It's faster than this Windows 7 computer I'm on right now. It loads up real quick. All I ever use it for is Mach 3, and that's it.
Yeah, and I really think that's the best way, is to take an old beater computer or even an old laptop for that matter, and just dedicate it to the machine, and that way you don't have all that other junk on there and stuff that might might not play well together.
Yeah, it was explained to me that laptops were all about power management and power savings, so I was kind of discouraged from getting one. And I have a laptop that I use for work, but I've never tried to run the CNC from it. I just asked all my friends and family if they had an old beater computer sitting under the bed or in the closet somewhere gathering dust, and if they did, I'd be willing to buy it. And within a week, I had 4 of them given to me just to get it out of my closet, kind of a thing. So they're out there, a lot of times free for the asking.
Yeah, another question we just had, Frank Condon over there asked 32 bits or 64 bits for Mach 3. And, of course, if you're using an old beater computer, you can use XP. I even have an old computer. It's loaned out right now, but it's got Windows 2000. That's how old that thing is, and it still works. But I also use this laptop, and it's got the new Windows on it, Windows 10. So, well, actually, it had Windows 8 when I got it, and I upgraded to 10. So,
I've heard people say 32-bit is what Mach 3 would work on, and it would not work on 64. But then I've heard people say that it does work on 64. So.
I've heard that too, Juan, and I just have to say, well, I don't know what the deal is because it's working fine on mine. So.
Well, all I can say is the old Windows XP when it first came out and the old Windows 2000 were all 32-bit. They didn't incorporate the 64-bit into the late XP or even in as they moved on up. So. But if you're saying you're using it on yours, Dave, there's obviously not a barrier of, or a difference in barrier between the 32 and 64. So.
Yeah, and even Windows 7, you could get it in either 32 or 64-bit, and I've run that with 64-bit without any issues. So.
Cool.
Yeah. This Windows 7 computer that I'm on right now is 64-bit. I have Mach 3 on it just to test out when I was first setting up the Sidewinder. I did all my settings in Mach 3 here just to find them. Now, I've never used this to cut anything, but everything I've ever simulated on Mach 3 on this 64-bit Windows 7 has worked just fine.
Yeah. I was looking over here, another question here. I see Mike Mursky's in the chat. Hey, Mike, how you doing, buddy? He says the website says it requires 32-bit system. I don't know about that. I mean, I guess some of the newer 64-bit computers, when you load older software that's 32-bit, it runs it.
It's backwards compatible, most of it.
Yeah, so I guess maybe that's what they mean on the website, because, like I said, I know it'll work with 64-bit machines because I run it all the time. So.
Now I know they sell Mach 4, and they push the 64-bit onto that one. So.
Yeah. I'm not I don't really have any reason to say bad things about Mach 4, but I've just stayed away from it. If Mach 3 is working for me, I'm not going to change.
Exactly.
I think even the new Windows revert back and run a lot of the 32-bit systems and Windows 7 and 8. The reason I say that is because when they were making that transfer over to the newer 64-bit, they had to make them where it'd run the 32-bit or they'd lose business because the 64 hadn't caught up to them yet.
Yeah.
So they were backwards compatible, if you get what I'm saying. Just because you had a 64-bit system did not mean that some of the 32-bit programs wouldn't work on them.
Yeah,
Right.
well, Microsoft had to make it where it would run, because all the other companies that had this software out that's all 32-bit, they would have pitched a fit, if it wouldn't run on that operating system. So they had to make it where it would run both, really.
Maybe that's more for the folks who have the old computers that are running Windows 95, 98. There's still a whole bunch of those out there too.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Because there were 16-bit, and I don't think it'll run on 16-bit at all.
I don't know. The oldest thing I've ever run it on is that Windows 2000 Professional. That was on old Pentium 3. Hey, while you're over there, let me get the screen over here on you, Juan. While you're over there pushing buttons, you want to talk about the system hotkeys? I don't know how you've got yours set up, but you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the way you get it to move with the arrow keys. I'm assuming that's how you've got yours set up.
Yeah, I do. For that, let me see.
Yeah, and folks, and you jump in here and correct me if I start saying something wrong, Juan, because I don't know how you've got yours, but I'm assuming that since you're standing right in front of your machine, that if you want the x-axis to move from left to right, you push the left and right arrows. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And then if you want the y-axis to move either towards you or away from you, you push the up and down arrows.
Exactly.
And then I'm assuming with the z-axis you use the page up and page down. Page down would bring it down, and page up would make it go up.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's pretty much how everybody sets it, and to me it makes the most sense because when you're standing there facing the computer, you know exactly which way to go with it.
I did have to reverse, and I'm trying to find it, but I had to reverse one of the axes in order to work that way.
Yeah, that's another thing we need to discuss too is sometimes when you first hook your machine up, particularly on the y-axis, since you've got two motors, synced together moving that axis, you got to make sure you got them turning both the same way. Because if one of them is running backwards, it's just gonna, put that gantry in a twist.
Exactly.
And it'll do it in a heartbeat too if you hold that button for very long.
Yeah, I had to reverse my z-axis when it first started. It was not pretty.
Yeah, but again, for those new people watching, it's a really easy thing to do in Mach 3. You just go to, I believe it's homing limits, I think is the, let me look over here and see. Well,
yeah, it is real easy to do. It's just put a check mark in a box, that's all.
Right.
Yeah, it either has the red X or a green check mark. So if it's running backwards and it's got the green check, you just undo it and put the red X back in there. The way I'm looking at mine right now, it looks like I have the X, Y, and the A axis reversed. And the Z is the only one I have running by the default way. So.
I had to do that with my machine.
Yeah, I always tell people too, when they build from those kits, the plywood CNCs and things, there's people that have, or actually there's one guy that built, bought one of the garage for CNCs and he was putting it together. I'll go going bad. But anyway, he called me and he says, well, I messed up and I put the motor on the opposite side. And I said, well, it'll still work. You probably have to reverse the axis. My audio clear up there, Mark?
Nope.
No, you're still really choppy.
Okay.
I got a question that I think is, if you don't mind.
Right ahead, Russ.
Over here, the question was.
Sorry, guys, cutting out a lot.
What is the difference between the machine home and the part home starting point for cutting? Do y'all understand? I don't understand. I don't know what that means, but
Can you repeat that?
what's the difference between the machine home and the part home starting point for cutting? In other words, I kind of get the machine has a home spot and the part where you have to put it where the part, this is the part and this is the depth of the part or whatever. What's the difference between the machine home and the part home starting point for cutting?
For cutting, your part home is what you really need. Your machine home, in my case, is for the limits, for the soft limits. Like that, the machine knows it's how far it is before it limits out. And your part home will zero out wherever you want to zero it out. I don't know if it makes sense or how I could put that.
Yeah.
Well, what is a machine home? What does machine home mean? I don't even know. What is it?
The machine home is like if you have limit switches or homing switches, and you tell it to go home, it goes to a certain spot every time.
Okay.
It zeroes itself out.
All right. Then what is the part home? You tell it where the part is, or you tell it a specific point. Here's the part, and this is the depth and everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, the way I run my parts, I usually program everything to work from the center of the blank out. So I'll just put measure diagonally and find the center point of my blank, and then I set my X and Y right over that point, and I bring the Z down and touch it off right there. And that, when I hit reference all home, that now is my reference home, or what you would call a part home.
Okay.
Yeah, machine home basically references your table. It's telling you how big your table is.
But would part home be equal to when the machine quits doing what it's doing, it goes to a certain place?
It'll go to the part 0.
Okay.
Unless you put a certain G code, G28.
It'll go back to part 0.
Yes. Now, if you put G28, which is a G code, it'll send it back to machine home if you would like it to.
Huh. See, now that made sense, and I don't even know what the heck y'all are talking about, but no, I'm serious. That made sense, because if the part 28, I guess when you set that, it tells the machine go back to a certain place, which is home part. But for the most part, when it finishes its cutting, it will still go back to the original point that it started at.
Right. When it starts cutting the part out, if you have it zeroed to the bottom corner, bottom left corner of the part, it'll cut out your part, do what all it's got to do its carving, and then when it's finished, it'll lift up and come back to that bottom left corner of that part and just sit there and run, unless you have yours set up to where it'll turn the router off for you.
Right.
But
now the more advanced you get at it, you can actually have multiple part homes. So you can have, let's say I have this part here up here right now. I could have 3 of them right beside each other and put 3 different programs together, one with a G54, one with a G55, and one with a G56. And I could run all 3 programs in one, and it'll do all 3 parts, and then come home if I would want it to, depending on what home I tell it to go back after I'm done.
I keep hanging around you guys long enough, and when I get my CNC, I won't even need to watch this shit anymore. That was a joke. I'm just kidding, okay?
do you need to watch it now?
Yeah, because I plan on having one, so when I get it, I'll be smart.
Well, the CNC is not going to make you smart. I mean, when he started talking G54, when he started talking G54, 55, and 56, he started to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to me.
Well, wah, wah, wah. No, but I kind of, even though I haven't got one or got into it, I kind of understand what he's saying when he's talking about that, is because those are the G54, the G4 whatever are specific points, codes that tell the machine where to go and what to do. So
Yeah.
I get that. I get that much. That's why I say about if I watch this, by the time I get mine, I'm going to be in good shape.
You'll be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the show, Russ.
Well, I kind of got that, Dave. That's why I'm here.
Y'all to learn stuff, you know?
Yeah, I apologize I can't get the actual screen caps or anything like that, but if you go to your offsets, if you have Mach 3 and you go to your offsets page, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, where it says active work offset, says G54, and that's what it starts off with. And you got 54, 55, 56. And each one of those you can set a 0 point to every particular one. And that's all different from your machine home. So you could work on different parts of your table if you would like. And if I would have different tools, I could actually set height offsets for it, or Z zeros for each one of my tools.
Okay, well, I hope my audio is not still terrible.
It's not your mic or anything. I think it's your internet for something. Trust
Yeah.
me, Dave. You know more than once we've had internet problems on my show, so it's sometimes.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is, while we're talking about the referencing home and stuff, why don't we talk about how you can run a program? Say you're going to run something like, for example, that Mayan calendar thing that Melinda was showing last week. You know, the cycle time on that's going to be like 2 or 3 hours. And say you've got one of those to run, but you're going to run it a little bit after work each night, and you're going to run maybe an hour and then cut it off and come back the next night and do it. Can you talk about how you can, you know, shut the whole thing completely down and come back and pick up right where you left off the night before?
Sure. Well, I had like 8 different pieces I had to do, and I had to step away from my machine. So basically, as long as you send everything to your part, you won't be able to.
You still there, Juan?
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying, with the exception of using the soft limits, you would have to actually shut that feature off. But I basically zero all my stuff out. I'll zero it out, Z0, X0, Y0, and you can shut your machine off, walk away, come back, and then just reference all home, and it'll zero everything out at the same spot where you were at, and you should be able to just put your part back under there and run it again.
Yeah, but what I wanted to talk about, because you're talking about running different parts, I want to talk about how you can do kind of the same thing you're talking about, but if, let's say you run a program, and again, it's something that's got a real long cycle time, and let's say it's got, I don't know, we'll say 20,000 lines of code, and you run the first 5,000 lines, and then you've got to stop for the night. You can actually hit stop, turn your router off, and then hit go to 0 so that you're sending it back to where you referenced all home.
Uh-huh.
And then once it gets there, you can write down that line number that you stopped at. And then, then you can shut your computer off, shut everything off. You could come back a week later if you wanted to, and fire it back up. And once you start Mach 3 back up, all you have to do is hit the reference all home button, because if you homed it before you cut everything off, it's setting right where it needs to be on that material.
Exactly.
And then you just raise the Z up a little bit. Like I said, you wrote down that line number, so you can scroll down to that line number and hit the button set next line. And if you can zoom in there, I know that screen is not.
Yeah, it's right above the reset button. It'll say run from here, and it says
Yeah.
line. It says
Yeah,
line.
you can hit the set. You scroll down to the line that you want, hit set next line, and then you hit run from here, and it'll scroll down through there, and then when you hit cycle start, it'll come up and say, I'm getting ready to make a move to here, and you make sure that that's what you want. You got to make sure you got your Z up in the air so
Right.
it doesn't drag across your material. And then once you hit that, it'll take off right where you left off. And like I said, it could be tomorrow, it could be a week from now, it could be whenever.
Yes.
And I say that it will work with the machines I build. I don't know if it'll, I don't think it would work with an X car because it's belt driven. So if you cut it off, you probably got stuff that's going to move around a little bit. But with these lead screws and the way I design machines, when you cut the power off, they don't move.
It's worked for me.
I'll second that. It's worked for me too. Had it happen just a few days after I watched Juan's video on how to recover from that.
Yeah, also, it's possible that if you're running a program, and I don't know why my computer, it hasn't done it lately, but it froze. And it froze where I hit reset, it wouldn't, good thing it didn't jog, but it wouldn't move. So I just wrote down all my coordinates, and now it'll be different if you home it from a corner or if you home it from the center. I always home it from center. It just works out for me. So every coordinate was, when I restarted the machine, I just went to MDI and sent all the coordinates to where it was, where I wrote them down. The only thing is they'll be backwards. It'll be, instead of, let's say it was 10, it'll be -10. If it was +5, it'll be -5. But that's for your center. If you're running off a corner, you just got to keep in mind, which corner you were going off of. But if you record all those coordinates, you should be able to go back to exactly where you were at, or the center that you were at, and recover your part, save your part.
Yeah. And also I might add too that, I mentioned writing the line number down. You don't necessarily have to go exactly to that line number. If you want to go a few line numbers before that,
I always go to Z.2.
That way you make sure you don't miss anything.
Yeah, I always try looking for that Z.2 reference, and that's where I'll start.
So that you know the Z's up in the air.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Dave?
Yes.
I've seen this couple, 3 times over there in the chat section, and the panel members, if you would put something like after the video's over in the area underneath where they can find, if you're subscribed on YouTube or whatever, where they can find you. A lot of them are saying that they would appreciate that.
They need to know where I'm at? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not you, but I mean some of the panel members. They're not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of the panel members, if they will put where like their YouTube channel underneath, you know what I'm saying, down in the section underneath the video after the video's over, so that they can find them and go to their web or the YouTube channels or whatever.
Okay.
Or even if you have I guess it's even if you have a web page or whatever. I understand what they're saying, because a lot of times on the show, on my show, that they don't understand where to find people, and it's real easy if you just put it underneath there for them to find you.
Yeah, if everybody would do that, just put in a comment.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Where people can find you.
All you have to do is comment on the video, and they can just click on your name and take you straight to your YouTube channel.
Right.
So I'll do that. Sure.
Yeah, and if you don't have a YouTube channel, if you put your web channel, if you have a website, put it down there so they can find you also.
Yeah, and they're also saying, if the panel members type something in the chat, they can just click on that too, and it takes them right to you.
Yeah, either way.
Well, scroll up, because I'm always first in the chat.
Yeah, a bunch to get to you, Mark. Okay, one other thing. I know we're getting close on time here. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to kind of talk about this. I didn't want to get too deep into this because I know there's a lot of people that maybe getting ready to use Mach 3 for the first time. So I just want to kind of go through the basic settings. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, I was talking with Richard McIntosh the other day, and the VCarve, what is it, VCarve Pro, and then they got VCarve Desktop, I think it is.
Aspires or highest one, I think.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like two different versions of VCarve. It used to be just one, and now they've got a desktop,
2D,
and a Pro. And the desktop, Richard was telling me, and I looked on there on the Vectric website where it has that it has a limitation of 24 by 24. And I'm not really, because I still use 7.5, so I don't have any limitation like that. But I'm not really sure what they were thinking when they did that. But I was telling Richard, and I think I mentioned it on one of these shows earlier, that if you have that software that has a limitation that won't let you program anything bigger than a 24 by 24, you can still get around that pretty easy because, and in fact, I even did it. Richard sent me a little program, and I did it with that, and it worked. His program, he had a lot of detail in it. It got kind of long, so I made something even simpler, just a square with a hole right in the center of it, and I made it on a 20 by 20 blank, 15 by 15. But let's say you wanted that part to be 30 by 30, but you've got that software that only has that 24 by 24 limitation. All you have to do is use the scaling feature, and Mach 3 will let you do that. You can go right where your code gets ready to start. You could put a G51. Let's say you wanted it 30 by 30, and you've got it drawn as 15 by 15. You could put a G51, X2, Y2, and what that's doing is it's saying to run everything in the X-axis and the Y-axis at twice the scale. So if you've got it drawn at half scale or 15 by 15 and you want it to be 30 by 30, even though you programmed it with that software that says you can only do 24 by 24, Mach 3 will still run it and cut the bigger size you need. I played around with that and tested it, and of course it works. So I really don't know what the deal is with the 24 by 24 unless they were trying to make a cheaper version of VCarve Pro, or I mean, what is it, Mark? Is VCarve Desktop, right?
Yes, you have VCarve Desktop and VCarve Pro. And
Okay.
VCarve
Well, I guess they were trying to
Desktop,
make a cheaper version of VCarve for people that only wanted a small, a small machine or something.
right, they were trying to make a small one for the home hobbyist. There was a lot of the smaller shape Okos and X-Carves coming out, and they wanted to make a cheaper software that would work with those CNCs. There are a bunch of other differences as well. It's not just the 24 by 24 limitations. There are several other.
There had to be something different besides just that.
Yeah. And in fact, if you go to the Vectric website and look at it, there's a comparison page there that has what is the difference between desktop and pro. And I mean, there's a whole big laundry list of differences. There are certain features that are just not offered because they figure if you've got a 24 by 24 size, you're not going to be nesting a whole bunch of parts. So they don't offer parts nesting on a full-size sheet, and they don't offer just various other things that it was a way to offer a cheap alternative with more features than Cut 2D had, which was the really entry level software.
Yeah, but also, like I said, whether or not you're using the VCarve Pro or the VCarve Desktop or whatever, that's kind of a handy feature because let's say you're making a logo for a customer, and maybe they want it on one sign, that's 5 by 5, but they want that same logo on something else that's 7 by 7. You don't have to You don't have to draw that thing twice, so you don't have to scale it up bigger in the drawing. You can just leave it the same and just put that code in there, just figure out what the scale factor is, and it'll do it for you, which I think is pretty cool.
Awesome.
It's good to know. I'd never, like I said before, I don't know half of the bells and whistles that come with this.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why I wanted to just kind of touch on the basics on the Mach 3 settings, and how to get people where they can get their machine up and running. There's a lot of bells and whistles. I mean, the Mach 3 will run like 6-axis, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got bells and whistles on there that I know I'll never use. And sometimes when you're new and you first install it, you look at that screen and you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to learn all this stuff? But you really don't need all that stuff. I just worry about the things I need. Another nice thing about Mach 3 is if you program in your software, or say you've got a tool library like VCarve Pro does, and you have let's say a 1/4-inch end mill, and you've got it, the default values in there that you're telling it to cut so deep and so many inches per minute, it's going to plunge so many inches per minute. The Mach 3 also has that little override button where you can bump it up. And I always tell people, start out slow. You can program your tool, at a slower speed, and hit the cycle start, get it going, and then when you see that it's cutting really good, start bumping that up, and right when you start to hear it chatter a little bit, then back it off a little bit, and now you've hit your optimum speed for cutting whatever that material is.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
We're talking a lot of G51, G54, G55. Is there a one-stop place where I could find a chart of what these commands are and what they do?
Well, I'm certainly glad you brought that up, Mark, because there's one right on Mach 3.
On Mach 3, yeah.
See, I haven't even found it yet.
Let me pull mine up here, because let me see if I can do a screen share here, guys.
It's right by the reset button.
Let me try a screen share. Okay, can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mark, see right down here where it says G codes? Can you see where my...
Yes, I got you.
If I click on that, it pops up with a handy-dandy little chart of all the different G codes. Kind of has a little definition, some examples showing how they work.
I don't see it.
Okay, well, I guess you can't see the pop-up because it's only sharing the first screen. But it also has one right beside it for M codes.
Okay. Now that I see.
Okay,
Yeah,
at
least the M code.
And see, sometimes you might want to use an M code. I mean, you can. I mean, I wouldn't really recommend trying to put tool changes in there, but I have done it where I have different tools, and even though I don't have an automatic tool changer, I just tell it to go ahead and put it all in one program, and then I put an M stop in there to where I can go change, shut the router off, change it, and then just hit the button again and go.
Okay.
Now on your Mach 3, there's if you do use those M codes, there's an M1 optional stop that you can activate, and if you use MO, it will stop it regardless. If you use MO1, it's optional. You could stop. It'll stop if you have it turned on on Mach 3 where the main screen is.
Yeah, you're talking about right here. If you have this button.
Yes.
Highlighted. Yeah. And if you don't have that on, then it's not going to stop.
Now MO will stop regardless.
Yeah. Now, since I've got this screen share, I guess y'all can still see this?
Yes.
Okay, you see this is that scale test that I have, and you can see over here in this window here, it's just a 15 by 15, and I think I had like a 1-inch hole right here in the middle. And I'm showing it that I'm cutting it out of a 20 by 20 blank. And if you come down right here, see where it says line 195 and it says G51 X2 Y2? Since y'all can, you still see the screen, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, well, you watch, and when I hit cycle start, you'll notice these over here, and I hope you can see my mouse.
Yeah.
These still say that they're 1-to-1 scale. But as soon as this scrolls down and it hits that G51, oops, I got to hit this, don't I? So as soon as it gets down there and it hits that G51, you'll see, there they go. Now they're flashing and it says now
There are 2.
it's scaling twice. So it's now going to cut that thing, instead of 15 by 15, it's going to be 30 by 30. And I can tell that by, if I come over here, seeing my X range, of course I had it coming from the center, see it's 15 1/4 by 15 1/4, and I've got this with a 1/4 inch end mill, which would be an 1/8 on each side. So if I take that G51 out, where it's just going to run full scale, that would say, let's see, what did I say it was? Oh, yeah, it'd be 7 something, 7 whatever. I can't do math in my head, guys. I'm old. But yeah, that's what happens. And also the way you turn this off, let me see if I can get it to go right down here. Once it hits that line down near the bottom, it's still on double scale or 2 scale. It'll come down here. Well, is it going? Oh, this isn't moving. But anyway, there's a G50 here. When it hits the G50, before it rewinds the program, that turns all that off.
Okay.
Usually for every activation code, there's a deactivation code.
Exactly, and G50 is the deactivation code for the G51 scaling.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, I know we're talking about Mach 3 today, but for all those that aren't using Mach 3 and don't have that list, you can go to RipRap. They have an awesome list of G and M codes.
Yeah, you can go, you can go pretty much to anywhere. Just go to Google and put G codes and search, and you'll find a chart of G and usually M codes as well.
Now there will be some that are different for some machines. So.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them have different functions depending on what kind of machine it is.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
But yeah, but it is pretty handy because it's right there. Like Mark, you've been using it a while and didn't even notice it, I guess. But those buttons, you click on those buttons right there on that main page, and it'll pop up and have a little explanation of what those are. So.
Yeah, it's like we've said before. I know what works for me, and I know how to use what I need to get the job done. I've never even set the soft limits on the machine. I put the part down, I set my X0, Y0, Z0, and I cut the part out. To me, it doesn't matter if the part's in the bottom left corner or the upper right corner.
Yeah, another little neat feature, and Juan, I'm pretty sure you know about this, and we haven't even talked about that, and I know we're running over here, and we'll get off here in just a second, but let me see if I can screen share this again real quick. Let me get all this back up here. I think I've got this thing locked up. But anyway, there's a, if I can find what I was looking for. There we go. You know, I used this thing a long time before I realized that if you hit the tab key, I don't know, can you see this on the screen, guys, or not?
Yeah.
Okay, did you see that pop out?
Yep.
Okay, this is really handy for, you know, if you're trying to move this thing just a really small distance, you can change your, like right now the jog mode's in continuous. You can just hit that to step, and you can set this for whatever you want. Like if I put it for 10 thousandths, and then every time you hit one of these axes, like if you watch the X, because that's what I'm hitting, it's changing by 10 thousandths.
You can still use your keyboard too.
Yeah, you can either hit these little buttons or that. But you know, that was I used Mach 3 for a long time before I ever realized that it was on there, and I think I accidentally hit tab, and I'm like, what the heck is that? You know, and so it's not unusual, I guess, to use this for a while, and you know, like you say, you just use what you know, and you don't worry about the rest of the stuff. But okay, has anybody else got any questions?
I've got one, Dave.
Yes.
When you're putting those codes in, is that something you have to put in manually?
What's that, Richard? You're breaking up there.
You know, when you're trying to scale up and you're using that G code to scale it up, do you have to put that into the program manually?
Yeah, I inserted that manually. And another thing I might add,
Do you have to type?
I mentioned, like, if you were going to cut, you know, you wanted to cut two different sizes. Say you wanted to cut something that was 10 by 10 and something that was 15 by 15. Well, you could put that G51 in there with a 1.5 scale, and every time you wanted to run it back the smaller way at 10 by 10, instead of taking that code out, all you have to do is put parentheses at the beginning and at the end of each line. And anything that's in parentheses, it just ignores. It treats it like it's just a note. So it won't read that line of code.
That reminds me, too, there's a block skip also incorporated in there, which is basically a /. If you put that in front of whatever line you want to skip, if your block skip is activated, it'll do that also.
Yeah. I know we may be getting a little over some people's heads here, but that's a neat thing. And another thing too, if you're ever trying to debug a program, instead of deleting the line and then kind of going back and going, oh man, I didn't write it down, I don't remember what it was, just put parentheses around it, or like you said, put the slash in front of it, and that way it won't read that line, but it's still there if you need to come back and do it. And it's also handy to put notes, like if you've got a certain little batch of code and it's doing something, you can put parentheses and just type in a note saying, hey, it's doing this, and then that way you don't have to remember. That's kind of what it is when you look at the top of a program. Again, I'll screen share one more time here, and we can.
I think it's kind of interesting that you're saying about this, is because if you've ever done any website work, what you're talking about sounds almost exactly like HTML code to build a website.
It's a certain type of coding.
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's differences, but in the same aspect, there's also a lot of similarities.
Yeah, see, if you look at my screen here where it says scale test, file created, all these things, they're just notes. It's just information to let you know. It's nothing that has anything to do with the code. And it's all got a parentheses around it. So you can see when I get, I have to get all the way down here to this line before it actually starts with any of the code.
Right, because
all this other stuff is just notes. And it's handy because it tells you what tool you're using, and so you can kind of check and make sure you got the right tool in there and all that.
So anything with the parentheses around it is the computer, or it doesn't even understand what exists.
Yeah, it doesn't try to perform any kind of function. It just says that's a note. I'll just skip over that line and go. Like, see right here, this line, of course, I don't know why it puts this in here, because it thinks I got a spindle. It says spindle 12,000.
Spindle start?
Yeah, clockwise, I guess. Is that MO3? Is that clockwise, I think?
Yes, sir.
But anyway, then the next line it says, okay, toolpath pocket 1, but it's all parentheses. It's just letting me know that this was the toolpath called pocket 1 in the program when I was programming it. So
whatever you do, don't parentheses around the G43 and your H.
Yeah, don't do that.
Was it
But you can see here how, like if I wanted to put an extra note, like say, I don't know, something special about this part to remind myself every time I ran it, I could just put a note in there and put parentheses around it, and then I'd see it every time I open it up.
Now, do you do that editing there in Mach 3, or do you do it in Notepad or some other text file editor?
Okay, well, can you still see my screen?
No,
Nope.
it's back to you.
Back to you.
Okay. I clicked a little bit too quick. Let me go back one more time here.
Then I'll hush.
No, I mean, this may be something, I don't know if you've seen this, Mark, but right here, see where this says Edit G-Code?
Yeah, I did not see that. I wasn't paying attention.
Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the screen because it's going to
I
pop
see it.
up in a different screen.
Okay.
But when I open that, can you see that?
No.
Okay, well, what it did is it basically opened up that text in Notepad.
Okay.
So now I can edit it, and as soon as I go File, Save, and then exit out of Notepad, it comes right back in here with the changes I just made.
Terrific. Okay. That's what I wanted to know. All right.
Yeah, so that's a real easy way to edit something if you need to.
If you do need to make changes before you even load it onto Mach 3, you could do that also on Notepad.
Right.
Yeah, I've done that too, but the way you were talking, nobody mentioned Notepad, so I thought, well, I better ask. Maybe there's a way of doing it right there in the in Mach 3.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mach 3 is really some pretty good stuff, I think. I've been using it for years. I mean, it's $175 for licensed versions, and back when I bought it, it was only $150. So I've been using it a long time.
$175 at today's standard on software is cheap.
Yeah, it is really.
Just in a value standpoint, there are so many millions of people using Mach 3 that if you have a problem, basically type it into Google and somebody has solved that problem. Within just a couple of mouse clicks. I mean, the level of support before you even get to the software company, there are so many there. It's just real easy to find answers to questions or cures to problems.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wasn't in any hurry to jump on the Mach 4 bandwagon, is because Mach 3 has been around for so long. Like you said, if you have any kind of problem, you don't even have to ask their tech support. All you got to do is go to a forum or something. Somebody's had that problem before and knows how to fix it.
I'm really surprised they ain't actually tried selling a certain Mach for, let's say, a plasma cutter or a mill or a lathe or for different machines. They kind of bundle it all up in once, which is in one program, which is great.
Yeah. And that's something else. I know we're running. What are we over here? We're over about 18 minutes here. Another thing we didn't talk about that I kind of wish we had discussed is the way you can set up different profiles for different machines. And if I can, let's see if I can. I don't know how this is going to work. I'm going to try to screen share one more time. And I'm going to close my Mach 3, so you guys let me know if you don't see what I want you to see here. I can open this up, and when it comes open, maybe it'll work. Nope. Let's try this again. Oh, I guess it's because I closed that screen. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Let me see if I can pull it up and then I'll screen share. But when I open this loader, okay, now let me see if I can screen share now. Maybe you'll be able to see this. Yeah. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yep.
What it does is these are different machine profiles, and you see I've got one that says 4x4, course, the default ones are Mach 3 mill, Mach 3 turn, plasma, and I even created one for my smooth stepper since I was using that. So when I open this up, it allows me to select whatever machine I want to run, which is very handy because if you have machines that are very different in the settings, you don't have to reset everything, and change it around. You just open this up, select which machine you want to run, and hit OK, and it loads those settings in the Mach 3, and you're good to go. So
yeah,
that was a handy,
dovetails right along.
That was a very handy thing that.
Yeah, that does. Wow.
Are you guys still seeing my screen? I can't tell with it.
No.
Okay.
We're back on you.
Okay.
Yeah, but all your pins and ports.
I like the screen better.
Do you like the Mach 3 screen better?
Than looking at your face. Never mind. I'm also.
Yeah. Anyway, that comes in real handy for because I've done videos on how you can take the Xylotex, which is really a 4-axis kit, and you're running it on a 3-axis machine, but you can, I don't have it on the laptop because I don't use it out there, but out in my shop, I have a different profile for, I think I call it my rotary axis or something, so that I can load those settings in and then set my little rotary axis thing on there and use it. So Mach 3 is very powerful software for the money, and it's I think it's probably I'd wager it's probably the most popular among the hobbyists. I don't know.
It appears to be.
Yeah. Except for those darn X-Carb guys.
And there are all kinds of free plugins for it and everything else. I mean, I'm running mine. I haven't touched the keyboard in months. I'm running mine off of an Xbox 360 controller. Yeah. And it was nothing more than downloading the drivers, plug it into the back of the computer, and away we go. You were talking about moving your axes by one step with jog. I have the A button on my Xbox controller. I push it, and whenever I hit the joystick, it moves it. I push it again, and it goes back to regular. It's fascinating. I mean, just some of the simple stuff that thing will do. It's great.
Yeah, and you can just go buy like a $10 or $15 Xbox controller, or it doesn't even have to be Xbox. Some of those controllers, I think you can make pretty much any of them work.
Yeah, there's some that have built-in macros that you could actually set whatever you want to them, and like keyboard strokes, and it'll do whatever you want it to do.
Yep.
Well, it's obviously whoever did Mach 3 or whatever was pretty well intelligent enough to set it on enough platforms out there that it could be used for a lot. Kind of like some of the freeware out there that you could use it for a lot of other and allow adaptation to it.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, Russ. With that one license for $175, you can run a CNC router, you can run another mill, you can run a lathe, you can run a plasma cutter, all at the same time with the different profiles. You can put it on up to 3 computers without violating the license agreement. And, if you take the laptop over and hook it up to the plasma, just load up Mach 3 plasma and off you go, run it. Unplug it and take it back over to the lathe, and you can run Mach 3 turn, and away you go. You're not buying separate software to control each one of those machines. It's all done on one.
Somebody's pretty smart when they invented that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All those guys, the Mach 3 guys, the Vectric guys, all those guys, man, they're way smarter than I am. Because I don't understand how any of that stuff works, but it does. And that's what I love about hobby CNC is it's good if you know a little bit about G code and maybe some M codes here and there, but you really don't have to know anything if you don't want to, because pretty much these days the software does it all for you. You know, you don't have to be real smart about that stuff. It does help if you know a little something, though. All right, we've got we're way over here. We're like 10:25, and we've still got 34 people we haven't run off yet. So I want to thank everybody for hanging around, watching. I want to thank all the panel members. For you guys that are still hanging around there, don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. And anybody on the panel got anything they want to say? Any announcements or anything? You know, want to talk about a project you got coming up, or what you're running on your CNC, or?
I don't have.
I'm running a new gantry for my Sidewinder.
There you go.
I was going to say I don't have one, so I want to talk about what I'm going to coming up on my CNC.
It's okay, Russ. I know, fella.
We'll let you talk about a damn pen or something if you want to.
Low blow.
I love you, Dave.
I love you too, Russ.
No, I do have one thing, if you don't mind me saying it.
What's that?
And you knew it already, I think. Well, you were. Well, I don't know. You kind of like you had to leave. Dave, and I appreciate that. Dave comes and stays on my show, and then leaves over and then gets all y'all guys invited and opens his own show. And I try to get over here as much as I can. Those guys though, they stay over there and they want me to chat, and I'm like, I gotta go to Dave's show, and they no, stay with us, Russ, and I gotta go to Dave's. So anyway, no, but I would like to say one thing that for those watching, Drew Short from Boom, from his show is going to be next week on my show. Yeah, so if y'all get a chance, and we're going to be giving away another prize next week too. That's the 3 Saturdays in May, prize every week. So all y'all come and watch my show. And I know if at 9 o'clock, if you have to bail out and cover, and just God forbid, come over and watch Dave's show, just go ahead and go over here and watch him.
Just open up a different browser. You know, watch us both.
Right.
Watch both of them at one time.
I'll try to make as many videos as I can about what was talked about today. I know I didn't do it any, but I'll try to get videos out there.
Yeah,
that would be good, because I tell you what, I've watched some of the stuff that you've done, Juan, so that would help a lot.
Yeah, old Juan, he keeps that orange thing back there pretty busy, from what I've seen.
He does.
He just finished, what was it, Let's Go Fishing thing or something.
You hear what I said? He'll wear it out, Dave, and have to buy another one.
I was just going to say that too.
Well, I got a big one with your name on it, Juan.
Oh,
those 4x4s. I'm saving you
that
one.
would be nice.
All right, guys. I appreciate y'all hanging around. I appreciate all the viewers. I guess we're gonna call it a night here. We're about 30 minutes over. So.
You want me to sing, Dave?
Gee, I don't know. Should we take a vote? All in favor say heck no. I don't hear that. Did you sing yours out? I missed that. I always have to go back and watch it to
yes, I sang
see
my
what song you're singing. Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody. Thanks, Juan, for talking about the Mach 3 stuff. Thanks, Mark, always. Melinda, good to have you back on here. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Richard. I started to say Richard M, but we only got one Richard M this time. Richard McIntosh. And Tommy, I'm glad you could make it today. Maybe we can catch up with you again next week.
Yep, I'll be here.
All right, guys. Well, I sure appreciate it. Tune in next week. Oh, I guess I should tell you what we're doing next week in case somebody wants to know. Richard Moeller, who's not with us tonight, he's over at the Maker Fair out there in California. But he's going to be on here next week talking about his machine build. I know he built his from plans. I'm not really sure. I would say what plans it was, but I'm afraid I'll misspeak because I don't really know what it was. But he has a chain drive, so everything I do has always been lead screws and stuff like that. But he he's going to talk about his chain drive and his build and kind of give a different perspective on. And his is a big machine too. You can put a whole 4x8 on his. So come back and check that out. And I guess if nobody else has anything else, we're going to sign off here. All right. We'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching, folks.